Hello and welcome. I am Sean Freeland, and this is your pre-scene analysis for Dennis and Coco, or DKK, which is the case behind your June sitting. So over the next half hour or so, we're going to get to know the business the way a tutor would before any tasks are on the table. So one promise is this works from the pre-scene only. There's no exhibits, no exam questions, and no guessing about what will come up. What we're building is more useful than a guess. It's just more real familiarity with the world this case lives in. So let's get into it. So let's be clear about what this is and what it is not. Everything I say is coming from the public pre-scene and nothing else. I'm not going to tell you what the exam will ask because nobody honestly can. And trying to guess just burns the prep time, so you don't have. What we do instead is move from what the pre-scene says to what it does mean. So by the end, we won't have memorized DKK, but we will know it. So you'll find a fact fast and understand why it matters. So that's a skill that pays on the day. So here's how we'll go about it. So how to read this deck. The analysis comes in 3 parts and it helps to know the shape before we start. The first stretch is a descriptive baseline, the facts, the industry, the organization, how it earns, its people, its governance, and its finances. Then we move into the analytical core. So the tensions, the stakeholders, the risks, the areas to be ready on. And that's where most of your thinking on the day will come from. So we'll slow down here. And the last part is about making this your own. So throughout, we have one rule: read actively, annotate your own copy, but don't try to memorize it. You can't take notes in with you. So let's start with the world that DKK lives in. Okay, so first the industry, because everything about DKK's position only makes sense against the market which it sits. And this market has a very particular shape. Scale, structure, and the 3 tiers. So here's that shape. Hairdressing in K-Land is enormous but hugely fragmented. The pre-scene tells us that it employs around 259,000 people, yet over 99% of businesses are single salons of up to 10 staff. And even the 3 biggest chains together make under 3% of the market's revenue. So here's what that means. In this industry, scale buys you very little. Nobody's truly big. So you don't win by just being bigger. You win on brand, on position, and look at how the top 3 split. We have Halo Hair being the largest at 203 salons, but it plays in the good tier. Trims sits in basic with 85, and DKK with just over 50 salons in excellent. So that last point drives the whole case. So DKK, real competition, isn't the biggest chain. It's anyone climbing up into that premium segment. So 4 sector pressures worth knowing. So the pressures in the industry, because each one touches DKK. First, we have a labour shortage. More than half of the business can't fill vacancies, partly because hairdressers leave to set up on their own. So the very people a premium salon needs are scarce and mobile, which is second is a substitution. So home dyes and online tutorials let people do at home what they'd have paid for. So that mainly bites the basic tier, but it's part of the backdrop. And thirdly, a technology gap. So online booking, reminders, and loyalty apps are all available, yet 3/4 of salons still run on paper. And fourth is the environment. So the industry recycles only about 1/5 of its waste and uses a lot of water and energy just as clients start to care. So carry those 4 with you, and we'll see DKK's answer to each of them. So the organization, the business itself, it's 40 years old and built on one deliberate idea. So the business basics is DKK is a private limited company, not listed on the stock exchange, which will matter when we reach governance. It was started 40 years ago by a husband and wife who met in the same salon. They've retired now. The Dennis stays on as a non-executive chair, and he and Coco remain the majority shareholders. So today, It's 50 salons, the third largest hairdresser in K-Land. So that's excellent. It's grown both organically and by buying individual salons and small chains, and the workforce tells you what kind of business that it is. That being 390 hairdressers, 155 assistants, 60 receptionists, and 62 at head office. So people heavy, service heavy. So remember that when the numbers do arrive. So the founding philosophy and how does it differentiate itself? So the idea the whole thing rests on is that the founders believed there was a gap for something more luxurious than what the market offered. A genuinely premium experience. So 40 years on, that's still the model. So what actually sets DKK apart? So luxurious salons in prime, wealthy neighborhoods, deeply personalized service, including a free in-depth consultation for every new client, hairdressers who must hold the full set of HSA qualifications and keep training every year, and exclusive product deals. So 2 ranges only DKK can sell in K-Land. It serves the wealthiest clients on purpose. Now sit with this line. The pre-scene says an expanding regional chain and a growing number of independents are now copying some or all of that. So loyalty is strong today, but where it goes from here is still open. Now that question sits right at the center of the case. So the business model, we've got the idea. Now how does DKK actually run and earn day to day? Revenue pricing and service delivery. So if we look at the money, like the industry, DKK is overwhelmingly a service business. So around 95% of revenue is hairdressing. It's not products, but it deliberately runs a small retail. It aims for 6.2% of revenue from products, and it hit that for 15 straight years until it just slipped to 6.1%. So tiny number, keep a finger on it because it returns in the financials. Those products come through 2 exclusive supplier deals, one for hair care, one for tools. So only DKK sells them in K-Land, and even non-clients come in for them. So on delivery, new clients get that in-depth consultation. Regulars, a shorter one, and there are no walk-ins, so everything is booked. Salons open 9 to 5, Monday to Saturday, and labour runs at about half of revenue. So the service mix does matter. So cutting is low margin, colouring is high, all deliberate, all premium. So the operating model, the defining fact. So now here's a fact that defines DKK more than any other. For all of its polish, the way it runs is strikingly old-fashioned. Bookings are in paper appointments. No online bookings at all. Client histories are computerized, but the booking is not. Stock is counted by hand and ordered by email. The website tells you about the salons, but you can't book or buy on it, and social media is barely used. This isn't an oversight, it's a choice, and it's central to who DKK is, but the pre-scene flags the other edge too. It says that limited social media is on DKK's own risk register, and paper bookings carries the double booking and no-show risks that the industry knows very well. So part of the premium experience, or is it a growing liability? So park that, it's the heart of one of our tensions. Next to the culture and the values, so a premium service is only ever as good as the people are giving it. So let's look hard at DKK's. DKK asks a lot of its hairdressers that they must hold the full HSA qualifications more than the industry requires, and keep training topped up every year. It promotes from within when it can. Salon managers split their time between cutting and managing, and they're kept on a fairly tight rein by regional managers. And one more, hairdressers earn no commission on the products they sell. Now here's the bind. The very investment that makes DK's people excellent also makes them the most poachable people in the market, and the best place to leave and set up alone, taking loyal clients with them. The strength and the risk are the same staff. I noticed this quietly, that staff satisfaction drifts to its lowest point in the most recent year. So just context for now, but context worth carrying forward into the exam. So the 5 values and the 2 gaps worth noticing. So DKK states 5 values, and most are what you'd expect. Commitment, we surpass expectations. Integrity, honesty with clients and each other. Citizenship, caring about the community, but 2 deserve a skeptical pause. Happiness is we aim to make our clients and each other happy. Each other, yet there's no retail commission and the industry runs high in turnover. And then the sustainability. We are intent on protecting the natural environment, so that's a fine line, but there's no committee behind it and no program described. In an environmentally heavy industry, I'm not saying these are failures. I'm asking you to notice the gap between the words on the website and what the pre-scene actually shows. That habit, stated versus real, is exactly what we sharpen in the tensions, which is where we head after governance. So before the tensions, we're going to look at governance, because DKK calls its own governance consistent with good corporate governance, and the pre-scene quietly does invite you to test it. If we look at the board composition, we have Dennis, who chairs it as a non-executive, but remember that he's a founder, and with Coco, a majority owner, so he isn't independent. There's a chief executive, then 5 functional directors, being creative, finance, operations, marketing, and HR. So below them, the country splits into 5 regions, each with a regional manager reporting up to the operations director. One detail to file from this is that the internal auditor reports to the finance director, so keep that in view. It's one of the 3 governance points we're about to draw out. So none of this is hidden, it's all stated. The work is seeing what it adds up to. So here are the 3 of the governance observation. First is a chair independence. A chair is meant to give the board independence oversight, but Dennis is a founder and part owner, so that independence is structurally limited. Second, the committees, or the lack of them. So as a private company, DKK chose not to have audit, nomination or remuneration committees. That's allowed, but it does remove the usual independent check on the actions on the board appointments and on pay. Third is that reporting line. The internal auditor reports to the finance director. The very function internal audit exists partially to scrutinise. I recognise independence concern, so now balance it. There is outside discipline. The HSA rates every salon and reviews those ratings regularly, and every DKK salon is rated excellent. So oversight isn't absent, but inside the boardroom, it's lighter than the label may suggest. Next, the financial story. So now to the numbers, and here's where to lean, because the financial story had a twist in its financial year. So the 5-year summary, a word on these numbers first. The pre-scene gives you 6 small charts with no data labels, so everything I quote is read off the shape of the line. Approximate, not precise, that's deliberate on my part, and it'll be deliberate on yours in the exam. With that caveat, revenue climbs steadily from roughly 15 million to about 19 over 4 years, then it stalls, and the operating margin tells a sharper story as it rises nicely to peak at around 16 to 17%, then in the most recent year drops back to about 13. So most of the 4 years gain is handed back in one. So why? Let's read 2 of those lines together. So the revenue against cost. Here's a move that explains it, and it's a move to practice because it's how you read any set of charts. Don't look at the margin alone. Look at the revenue and cost together. So for the first 4 years, revenue grows faster than cost, so margin rises. So that's the growth phase. Then in the final year, revenue flattens while costs keep climbing, and that's a compression. Put plainly, the margin didn't fall by magic, it fell because costs kept rising while revenue stopped. Now that one comparison explains the whole shape, but, and this does matter, the pre-scene shows you the pattern, not the cause. Your job is to see the pattern clearly and be ready to reason about it, not to invent a reason the case never gives you. Now let's look at how much moves at once. So the 20x5 inflection, not just one number, because here's the real headline. That final year isn't one weak number, it's several together. Revenue stalls, cost rise most steeply of all. Margin compresses, as we just saw. So client retention, which had climbed to around 84%, falls back to roughly 81%. Staff satisfaction hit its lowest point of the 5 years, and that little retail figure, the 6.2%, which was met for 15 years, slips to 6.1% for the first time. So step back and see it together. We have a premium business built on loyal clients and expert contented staff. It's showing softness in margin, in loyalty, and in staff feeling. So in the same year, that's the single most loaded part of the whole financial picture. You don't need to explain why it happened. You need to have seen that it happened and to be ready to think about what it may mean. So on to our strategic tensions, which is the heart of it. The strategic tensions, which are the genuine trade-offs in the case, each with real merit on both sides. This is where most of the real analytical weight sits. So we'll slow right down here. And a reminder before we start, a tension is not a problem to solve. It's a balance to hold as a skeptical, even-handed thinker. So the first tension, we have premium differentiation versus replication. So on one side, DKK's position looks solid. The best known premium brand in K-Land, loyal and wealthy clients, and the things that set it apart is reputation, prime locations, fully qualified staff, exclusive products aren't copied overnight, a real case for holding the course. On the other side, we have the pre-scene plainly states that competitors are already replicating the offering. That expanding regional chain, those growing independents, and if what's scarce becomes common, the very thing that justifies a premium will start to erode. And standing still could let DKK drift towards the good tier, which it sits above. Both readings have force. The pre-scene tells us that replication is happening and that loyalty is strong right now, and it leaves which way it goes wide open. The next tension 2. So investing in expert staff versus training your own competitors. So on one side, the model demands the most skilled hairdressers that there are. So heavy investment in qualifications, training, and internal promotion is exactly right. It's what the excellent training or the excellent rating rests on. On the other hand, the better DKK trains its people, the more attractive they become to rivals and the better equipped to leave and set up alone they are. So with loyal clients possibly following them out, add the non-commission policy and there's a retention lever that DKK simply does not pull. What makes this one so sharp is that the strength and the exposure are the very same people. The pre-scene sets both up, but settles neither. Next, tension 3, a traditional model versus an industry moving to technology. On one side, the personal manual, in-person way of working is part of what feels premium. The booked appointments, consultations, no rush walk-ins, and excellent ratings across all 50 salons suggest it genuinely does work. However, there's a fair argument that bolting on technology could cheapen the feel. On the other competitors who adopt technology gain efficiency and reach, those paper systems carry the double booking and no-show risk to be noted, and DKK's own register lists limited social media as a concern. The gap between what the industry does and what DK does is widening. So 2 defensible readings, and the pre-scene presents the gap without telling you which way to jump. Next, we have tension 4. We have central control versus local autonomy. So on one side, tight control and close oversight from regional managers is what delivers that uniform, excellent experience in every salon. Consistency is a product. A client should get the same standard wherever they go. And here standardization isn't a weakness, it's the promise. On the other, low autonomy may blunt local responsiveness and stop salon managers growing into genuinely commercial leaders. And the pre-scene calls local knowledge and good management real success factors in this industry. So control does buy consistency, but it may cost adaptability. The case lays out both, but it doesn't resolve either. Next, we have tension 5. We have a stated sustainability value versus what actually sits behind it. On one side, that value, plus clients increasingly wanting eco-friendly choices, gives DKK a genuine commercial and reputational reason to lead. A premium brand that visibly did sustainability well could deepen loyalty. So on the other, the pre-scene shows no committee, no described program, an energy and water heavy operation, salons refurbished every 3 years, and client sustainability concerns sitting on the risk register. So stating the value without visible substance is itself an exposure. Reputational and commercial, so the real opportunity being fin backing. The pre-scene will name the value, it shows the gap, but it is going to leave you to weigh it all up. Next, we have our stakeholder map. So from the tensions to the people around them, a stakeholder map who matters to DKK, why they have a hold in it, and where the friction actually sits. So if we run down the key players, Dennis and Coco first, they're majority owners, and Dennis chairs the board, so he has real power. Their interest is returns plus legacy and brand. The other shareholders hold minority stakes and want returns, but with no committees. They get limited independent oversight, whilst the hairdressers have power through scarce skill and client relationships which they carry, and they want to be paid. Development and conditions, so the clients hold power through their spending, their loyalty and their mobility. The two exclusive suppliers have genuine leverage as sole sources, and the HSA holds power as well as it awards and reviews the excellent ratings. Everything does depend on. The union represents most staff and government sets the rules. So notice how much of DKK's fate sits with people who don't actually work for it. So what are the stakeholder friction points? We have 3 with really internalizing. So first is the founder chair against the minority shareholders. Dennis, holding both ownership and board leadership, will sit squarely against the minority interest in independent oversight. And with no nomination committee, nothing softens it. So second, the hairdressers against DKK's need to keep them. So power through scarce skill and portable clients. So heavy training that only sharpens how poachable they are, and no commission to hold them there. Third are those 2 suppliers. So we have sole sources with real leverage. A price rise or a lost contract that would hit both the retail line and the premium story at once with no domestic fallback. So none of these is a crisis today. Each is in the fault line, and you knowing where they run is what lets you reason fast when something presses on one of them. So tensions are trade-offs, risks are exposures, and they're different things. So DKK names 7 of its own, and the pre-scene quietly surfaces a few more. So let's look at them. Start with DKK's own register. 7 risks it records. Competition with replication is the sharpest form. A lack of skilled staff in an industry already short of them. And DKK needs the best. Reputational damage, so say from a health and safety incident. Energy and water price swings on an operation that uses a lot of both. Client sustainability concerns, that value questioned again. This time it's written down as a risk. The availability and price of those exclusive products. So where 2 suppliers are the only source, and limited social media, which DKK itself does flag as a risk, are worth noting. So DKK has written these down. That's a business seeing its own exposure clearly, more than many do, but the pre-scene services a few more which it does not. So these further risks are in 4 that the register doesn't spell out. So governance and independence, we've covered it. There's no committees. The audit reporting line is a founder, a chair together, finning the oversight. The fragility of those manual systems. We have a paper booking carrying double bookings and no-show risk. And we have computerized clients records which bring data protection issues. So that rates to the downside. A single serious incident, even a missed patch test, could put the excellent rating at risk, and that rating anchors the entire premium position. And concentrating in one narrow segment, which is serving only the wealthiest, is a source of resilience, but the pre-scene says as much, but it's also an exposure if tastes do shift or well-funded rivals do chase the same clientele. So resilience and fragility is in the same fact. That's the kind of double edge to stay alert to. Now we have our anchor points, and the title says it. Be ready, don't predict. These are the areas that the pre-scene develops in real depth. They're a map of where to be limber, not a forecast of the tasks. Let's be firm about this because it matters. We're trying to build readiness. We never predict, so every anchor is phrased, so be ready to think about. Never the exam will ask about, and that's not just my rule. So ACCA's own published guidance is explicit that the pre-scene must not be used to question spot, so why bother with anchors at all? Because the pre-scene has clearly done more groundwork in some areas than others, and noticing that tells you where your thinking should run loose. So let's be ready before you ever see the paper. So when the real tasks arrive, you bring judgment to a world you already understands, which is the whole game. So here are the 8 which I have identified. Okay, 8 areas quickly, then we'll go deeper on a couple of them. So 1, how a premium position is built and defended. 2, it's a talent model, so recruiting, training, and keeping scarce people. The 3rd is a technology and operations gap. Number 4 is the exclusivity supplier arrangements. 5 is a governance structure against recognized principles. Number 6 is sustainability and environmental impact. 7 is financial and non-financial performance, especially in that final year inflection. And 8 is essential control operating structure. So notice that these aren't topics to revise and recite, they're directions to be ready to think in. So let me take the first 2 a little deeper so you can see what being ready actually looks like. So the first anchor, how the premium position is built and defended. So what does a pre-scene give you? The 3 tiers with DKK explicitly and excellent, and the specific investments that hold it there. That means prime locations, full qualifications, ongoing training, free consultations, exclusive products. So what should you be ready to think about? Which of those are genuinely hard to copy? Okay, so the qualifications, the location, and the exclusivity, and which a determined rival could replicate, and whether what DKK does today is enough to defend the position as replication picks up speed. It's not a prediction of a question, it's just a direction for your thinking about what should be already running so you don't meet it cold. The next anchor is a talent model. The pre-scene gives you a lot here, the full qualifications, the high training bar, internal promotion, the industry shortage, the mobility of skilled staff, no commission, and that dip in staff satisfaction in the final year. So be ready to think about how DKK attracts, motivates, and holds the people the whole model depends on. So when all those pressures are pulling against it, that satisfaction dip isn't an answer to anything. It's more a prompt or a thread with being ready to pull. So again, not this will come up, it's just a part of the case you'll already have thought about. So yeah, if you are asked about it, you are ready. Anchor 3. And the technology gap, so paper bookings, no online purchasing, barely use social media, listed as a risk. So be ready to weigh the case for and against changing it in a business where the manual feel is part of the premium. Anchor 4, the exclusive suppliers, 2 sole source contracts, no domestic alternative. So be ready to think about the supplier power, concentration risk, and what exclusivity is really worth. And Anchor 5 is the governance, so the founder is the chair, the missing committees, the audit reporting line. So be ready to take each gap against a principle that it departs from and to picture what stronger governance might actually look like for a private company like this. Anchors 6 and 8. And the last 3, Anchor 6 being sustainability, a stated value but no committee. There's no program, a heavy footprint. So be ready to think about that gap between claim and substance as both reputational risk and commercial opening. So Anchor 7 is the final year inflection. Those 6 signals are softening together. Be ready to think about what a coordinated downturn might look like and what it means strategically, and to stay honest about what the pre-scene does not tell you, which is why. And Anchor 8 is essential control. So managers kept on a short rein, so be ready to weigh consistency, the brand promise against local responsiveness. So that's 8 directions. Not one of them is a guess at the paper, but it's just something that I have picked out. Okay, so we're nearly there. This last stretch is the most important thing I'll say, because watching me do this is not the same as doing it yourself. We have a 2-pass preparation method. So here's how to make it yours. Work the pre-scene in 2 passes. First path, be descriptive, read it whole and rebuild the facts, industry, organizational, model the people, the governance, the finances, anchor every claim to where it came from. On the second pass, we're going to be more analytical. So try to build attention that the stakeholders have, the risks, because those only make sense once you hold the whole picture. And then, and only then, compare what you produced with this analysis. The point isn't to match me, it's to notice the gaps. So where you saw something that I didn't or missed, something that I caught, so that gap and working out why it's there is worth more than anything you could read straight off these slides. Okay, so one more discipline, annotate, don't memorize. So you can't take the notes into the exam, so the goal isn't a pile of notes to reread, it's fluency. So know this case so well that you can find a fact fast under pressure and know what it means. So mark up your own copy as you work, not to revisit, but to burn the document into memory. Then in the day, the exhibits and tasks will bring things you haven't seen, so that's by design. But the underlying situation is DKK's position. It's people, it's governance, it's tensions and risks. So that will be already in your head, and you'll be applying judgment to a world that you understand, which is the edge that this is supposed to build. So some practical preparation. So if you want it as a checklist, here it is. Read the whole pre-scene uninterrupted and notice what surpasses you. Number 2, build a descriptive baseline. Every claim tied to the source, completeness over speed on the first pass. Number 3 is work the tensions and give them the most time, arguing both sides with equal conviction before you land anywhere. 4 is to build the stakeholder map and the risks and push past the register. Ask who's missing and what friction the case implies but doesn't stick. And number 5 is compare this analysis and learn from the gaps. So there's 5 steps in order, and you'll know this case cold for the day. Okay, so the habit that builds readiness. So underneath all of this is one habit: read actively, treat every fact as a signal, and that's why the pre-scene has bothered to include it. Think intentions, hold 2 legitimate readings at once, and resist collapsing them too soon, and anchor everything. So get used to saying the people section tells us. The governance section notes this, because precision under pressure comes from familiarity, not luck. So do that, and the pre-scene stops being a document you've read and becomes a world you understand, which is exactly where you want to be standing when the clock does start. Okay, so the full structure at a glance, a quick recap of the ground we've covered: the discipline, the industry, the organization, the model, the people, governance, the financial story, the 5 tensions that the stakeholders have, the risks, the anchor points, and how to make it your own. That's a whole shape to start to finish. Okay, so let's pull it all together and finish this video. So here's what you know about DKK. The world, a fragmented, labour-short, technology-lagging, eco-pressured market where brand and position, not size, win. The organisation is a 40-year-old founder-shaped private premium chain of 50 salons set apart by expertise, exclusivity, and a deliberately narrow focus, but facing replication and that coordinated wobble in the final year. So the tensions is the 5 real unresolved trade-offs. We have differentiation against replication. We have talent against attrition, tradition against technology. We have control against autonomy, and a sustainability claim against its backing. And the readiness is the 8 areas to be limber in. Directions, not predictions. Walk in knowing all of that, and you're not reading the case for the first time when the clock starts. You already know the world. The task just tells you what to do with it. Okay, so thanks for watching this video. That's your pre-scene analysis from me for DKK. Everything here came from the pre-scene alone. Again, the exhibits on the day is what's going to be important. There's no tasks, no predictions. So now go and do the work yourself. Try and rebuild it and make your own copy, and then walk into the exam in June next week with the world of DKK already in your head. So thanks for studying with me, and good luck on the exam.